Hello and welcome to part 20 of the series on how to create a chess game with ReactJS. In this part we are going to refactor our code, and we are specifically going to refactor the referee. So if we open up our source and then our referee, open up the file, we will see that's a lot of lines. So if we scroll down to the bottom, we see that's over 300 lines of code, which is fine because every line of code is really important for this to work. But having this many lines of code in a file can be kind of confusing, and it might be hard to navigate through as well. We are going to take a look at the function isValidMove, and in this function we have a switch type. In this switch type we switch between the type of the piece and we check if it's a pawn, knight, bishop, rook, queen or a king. This is really good. We are going to extend this to make it even better. Instead of making the functions inside of our referee, we are going to create a new folder inside of our referee, and we are going to name it Rules, because those will be the rules which the referee is going to use. The first rule that we are going to create is the rule for the pawn. So let's create a PawnRules.ts and let's rename this to PawnRules.ts, and the PawnRules.ts file will contain all of the rules which apply to the pawn. If we go up here and we look at the pawn move, I think it's at the top. Yeah, so right here we have our pawn move. We see that it is just one function which stops right here. So how about we just grab this whole function like so. We save the referee and then we paste the pawn move right here, and we immediately get some errors. So the errors we are getting are because we are creating a function right here, but the function is not inside of a class. So when a function is inside of a class, like right here, the class is referee and the function is tile is occupied, we don't need to specify anything. But if we go inside of our pawn rules and we just type it like this, we see that we get an error. The reason why we get all those errors is because it is not recognizing pawn move as a function. To create a function out of it, we are going to say equals, and then we write the constructor, which we already have right here. Then here at the right we write an arrow function, so this returns a boolean, and then arrow, and then we pass in the function which is the body, and then we want to say const right here. So we are actually declaring this as a variable. The next thing we want to do is we want to export some things from this pawn rules file. So instead of saying const, we are going to say export const, and right now the error is gone. If we remove the const keyword, we will get an error which says cannot be compiled under isolated modules because it's considered a global script file. Add an import, export or an empty export statement to make it a module. That's the reason why we need to put export in front of it, because otherwise it will think it's a global file, which is not, it's a module. So now we say export const pawn move, and we get some errors because we haven't imported those yet. So we want to import our position from constants, and then a team type as well from the constants, and then we have our piece which is also from the constants. Now we can save this up and we get some other errors. So the next errors we are getting are from the tile is occupied function. As you can see, the this keyword is being underlined with red. This indicates that there is an error. If we hover over it, we say object is possibly undefined. So why would it be undefined? Well, because normally you'd use this inside of a class, like we did with the referee. If we want to refer to a function inside of our class referee, we use the this keyword, because the function is part of this class. But inside of here, we don't have a class. It's just a isolated function, which is not part of a class. So we cannot actually use the this keyword. For now, we are going to ignore this, and we are going to import the pawn rules into our referee, because right now if we scroll to the bottom we will see that we get a breaking error for the pawn move because it doesn't have the pawn move defined anymore. So at the top we are going to add a new import pawn move, and then it all automatically completed it from ./rules/pawn rules right here. So now if we scroll to the bottom, we still get the error, and the error is because the property PawnMove does not exist on type referee. Well, that's true, because we now have the same problem as we had with the PawnRules, which is the this keyword indicates that we are looking for a function inside of the class, but we don't have the PawnMove in the class anymore. So we can remove the this and it will work again. So we fix this, but we still need to fix the this keyword right here. If we want to get rid of the this keyword right here, we need to make the tile is occupied an isolated function, just like we did with the PawnMove, which means that we need to move it out of this class right here. So let's see where we have the function tile is occupied, and we need to make a separate file and we need to put it outside of the class. So we're going to create a new file, which will be general rules, and we actually want to append it with a .ts extension, and inside of our general rules we are going to put the tile is occupied and tile is occupied by opponent. So we are going to cut those away, and inside of here we're going to place them, and we want to say export const tile is occupied, which is an arrow function like so, just like we did with the PawnMove. We probably want to import the piece, the position, and maybe something else as well. So let's see, the position is right here. We don't want to. So okay, this is the first function, which is great. We only need to, I think, no, it's right. But what does it say right here? Variable tile is occupied implicitly has an any type, which we can easily fix by putting an is equal mark to this. So we assign this to the constant. We also want to import the same position. So right here, let's import it from the constants. And next we want to do the same, but then for the tile is occupied by opponent. So right here we say export const tile is occupied by opponent is equal to this function. We want to import the team type as well. And then we create an arrow function right here, which means that we are pointing to our body, which is this. Now we can save this up and we can remove the this from here. And if we now try to finish this, we will see that we get an automatic import from /general rules, which means that we are just importing the function from inside of here, which is great because now we don't need the this keyword anymore. So we're going to check every place where we use the this keyword, and right here we have the other function, but we've also created that one. If we open it up, we have the tile is occupied and tile is occupied by opponent, so that's great. We can also remove from here, and now we can save our PawnRules. Great. Next, our referee also has some references to the tile is occupied, so we need to remove the this keyword from all the locations, and we need to import the function or the constant from the file where it was created, which was the general rules. And as you can see, if we move up here, we see that we get the tile is occupied by component or opponent from /rules/general rules. So now we'll just go over every place where we use the this keyword. Let's save it up, and hopefully the page will re-render, and as you can see the page still works, and we can still move our pawns, our horses, and hopefully also the bishop, king and queens. Nice. Okay, so great. Now everything is still working as it did before, and we've already cut it down from 350 lines to 270 lines. The thing is, we're going to do this, which we did for the pawn rules, for every piece. So also for the knight, bishop, rook, queen and king. If you want to, you can pause the video to try to do this yourself. The next piece that we are going to do will be the knight. For the knight, we are going to create a new file, which will be the knight Rules.ts, and we are going to copy over the knight move from the referee, which is right here. Let's copy everything and cut it away with Ctrl X on Windows at least. And then right here we are going to paste it. We're going to create a constant out of it. We're going to create an equal mark right here. We are going to append it with an arrow function, which implies that this inside of here is the body. We want to import the different classes or the different types. So also the piece and the theme type. And then we want to remove the this dot from everywhere. And we also want to import the tile is occupied or empty thingy from the other file. So let's see, it's not suggesting anything. Well, that's fine, we can also write it ourselves. So let's see, we can also copy it over from here and import it like so. But I think I misread it a little bit. So actually the function is tile is empty or occupied by opponent. And we only have the tiles occupied or tiles occupied by opponent. So that means that we have to create a new function, or we have to copy over a function from the referee inside of our general rules. Let's see which one it is. I think it's this one, the tile is empty or occupied by opponent. Let's cut it away from here, save this up, go to the general rules and paste it down here. We also need to transform this into an arrow function, like so. And then we want to imply that this is the body. We need to make it exportable, so we can import it in other functions or other files, which is exactly what we are going to do right now. We are going to import it in our night rules. So now we can import it like so. Let's save it up. We see that the file is green, which is great. The referee still is red, and that's because we have some this dots, which are from the function, which was previously in the referee, but not anymore. So we can remove all the this dots. And I think we still have a couple of more to go. And what do you think is the next thing that we are going to do after that we have removed all the this dots? Because the function is still in red or underlined in red. So how do we make this red thing go away? Well, the answer is really simple. We just need to import it. So right here, we import tile is empty or occupied by opponent. And right here we need a comma, another dot, like so. We can save it up. And now the only thing that's red is the night move right here. It cannot find a name night move. Let's see, did we create an export function? No, we didn't. We just created a const. So let's make this an export const, night move, which is great. And then right here, we can import it at the top. So let's see, we have our pawn move, and then we want to import our night move, and it automatically detected where we want to import it from. Let's save it up, refresh the page. And as you can see, we get an error. So that's not something that I expected. Let's go down here and see why it cannot find it. Well, failed to compile, cannot find name, night move. Okay, so it was just a cache error. I refreshed the page with Ctrl+Shift+R to refresh the cache as well, and now it works, which is great. Next up, we are going to do the bishop. We are going to create a new rules, bishop Rules.ts. We are going to open up the referee, and let's see, the bishop is actually pretty big. So inside of here, we're going to copy over this, cut it away, and put it inside of here. We are going to create an export const out of it, equals position will be imported, theme type as well, and then the board state as well, like so. We need to specify the body. We get some errors about the same position. Okay. So those are new. This is something we can import. This as well. And let's see, do we get any other errors? No, only the same position. But I think that's one that we have. Yeah. So in our constants, we have created the same position, which just compares to pointers. No, to positions, right? Yeah, it compares to positions and checks if they are in the same position. Nice. Now we can move down here and say bishop move. And let's automatically import it like so. Save it up and wham, we have the bishop. It's going really smooth. Next we are going to do the rook. New file, rook move.ts. we're going to copy over the rook from here, which is, oh, I was going to say really small, but it's a little bit more than I thought, like so. Copy it over like this, paste it right here. Export const rook move is equal to initial position. Yes, let's import the theme type, the position, and then the piece as well. And then we want to make an arrow right here. We need to import the same position. We need to import those things. Import tiles occupied. Oh, yes, like so. Nice. And then we can import the rook right here. So we remove the dis.rook move and we just say rook move. We only have 2 more to go. So let's do the queen. Queens move, queen rules. Ah, dang it. And I named the rook move, but it should be rook rules, because perhaps we want to have some other rules for the rook as well. So let's update the imports automatically, and it just updated this to be rook rules. Next we have the queen rules. So right here we're going to grab the queen move, which is actually pretty short, considering that the bishop and the rook were quite big. We say export const queen move is equal to this. Then we want to create yet another arrow right here. We say piece, theme type, and position. Nice. And then we need to import those as well, like so. And I'm actually going to show you a little trick, which is not really a trick, but I tend to use that sometimes to speed things up. We're going to remove this, and we need to import it. So let's import it like this, refresh the page, and it should be working. And then we have the king. So one thing that I sometimes use, not king Rules.ts. Yes. So something that I sometimes do is that I just copy over the imports from other files which are very similar. So for example, for the moves which we all have, we mainly import the piece, theme type, position, and then perhaps some functions. So one thing I would do when I was creating the project by myself, I would just copy over this and then go right here, import it like this, and then as you can see, everything is imported correctly and we don't need to manually do that. And also one thing that you might run into if you do this is that you import something which you don't need, but you can see that if it is something which you don't need, because if you, for example, import this as well, it will be grayed out. So you can remove the grayed out keywords or the grayed out words, so you can keep your code clean. Now that we have the king rules, we can remove the king move right here and just replace it with this king move. Great. Now that we have all the moves of every piece in a separate file, in the rules file, we actually have a much better and clearer referee, in my opinion. So it's only 80 rules, which is mainly because, everything is necessary, so that's fine. We can remove those, we can remove the same position, and well, I think it just looks a lot cleaner. We didn't write any new code, but we did refactor the code that we had a lot. So one more thing before we are going to end this episode right here. And that thing is something that will make all those imports right here only like kind of one line, maybe multiple lines, but it will all import from the same place, which is something that you can do with TypeScript. So I'll give you a moment to think about it and then we'll implement it together. The thing I'm talking about right now is a index.ts file. So right here we have a rules map or a rules folder, and inside of this rules folder we have every rule for every piece. What if we create an index.ts and inside of here we just expose every rule that we have, right? So instead of exposing the function in the rule file which it's in, so for example exposing it right here and then importing it from the Pawn rule, let's import it through the index.ts. This is something which is really simple to do. All we have to say is export star from, and then we specify the file which we are exporting from, ./PawnRules. Let's add a semicolon, save it up, and now if we open up our referee, we can actually import the pawn move from ./rules. So how is this possible? Well, because if we look inside of ./rules, it automatically reroutes to the index.ts. And if we look at the index.ts, it sees that we have an export from the pawn rules. So this pawn move right here is being referenced right here, which is in its place being referenced right here. So we can now do the same thing that we did with the pawn for every other piece type. Export star from, and then /. The next thing was, let's see, the bishop, I thought. Yes, and then also the knight. Oh, knight rules, like so. Then we want to do the same for the rook. Yes, the queen. Queen rules, and then the last one, which will be the king. Like so. And now instead of a referee, we can remove all those imports, and we can get them from here: knight move, bishop move, rook move, queen move, and king move, like so. And now if we save this up, we can also just move this into a separate new line so we can read it a little bit better. But if we save this up, we won't get an error because, well, it works like we just saw with the first import. So let's save it up and refresh the page and move our things around, and everything still works, which is great. But the thing is that our referee is now a lot cleaner. We import everything from the rules. The rules expose everything through an index.ts, and then this index.ts references all the rules which we have defined right here. And also, one thing which is pretty neat is that, for example, the general rules are not being used by the referee. So if the referee only uses the index.ts, we don't need to export the general rules. As you can see, we didn't, so we could edit general rules, but the referee doesn't need it. So what if we just remove this from here, and then the referee will not be able to import the general moves, or, well, not the general moves. Let's grab a name from here, the tiles occupied. We won't be able to import that because it's not being exported, which is great because this keeps it simple for our referee. He doesn't need to know that the general moves are existing. Only the bishop rules, king rules, the knight, pawn, queen, and rook rules need to know about the general rules. Alright, so I'm really glad with the refactoring. I want to thank you guys for watching. I hope you could follow along. Leave a like, comment down below, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye!